Hey everyone, welcome back to Perfect Pairings with Jaycee. As we step into the cozy Burr months, September, October, November, and December, get ready for some crafting inspiration that will make you fall in love with creativity all over again. In today's video, I'll show you how I designed a card perfect for autumn vibes. Let's dive in and get crafting. One of the first decisions I make with any card is picking the color palette. I think it's important to pick your color palette as it tells your color story and it also sets the mood for the rest of your card. So for autumn or for fall, I like to really stick with warm color palettes, sometimes jewel tones. But to make things easy, I'm looking at colors that are on the top half of this color wheel right now. So I like to stick to yellow greens, yellows, oranges, bright reds, red oranges, and maybe into the more pink family. But otherwise, a lot of the cool colors I'll leave for November and December. I just think it's more suitable for that time frame. Back in the beginning of Altenews' little history, when Altenew had the crisp dye ink sets, one of my favorite color palettes to grab was from the Four Scoops palette. So that's dark chocolate, peach perfect, cotton candy, and mango smoothie. But like I mentioned, these are all much more into the warm areas of our color family. So we've got a nice yellow, a nice warm pink, of course, a bright orange apricot, and then a variation of orange is that dark brown, so dark chocolate. I'll use this palette as the basis for the rest of my card and play with different variations and tones of the inks that are found in Four Scoops. I'm going to start with my older product first in my perfect pairing. I'm going to use my 9x12 sticky mat grid quite a lot for this card. And I picked Craft a Flower Japanese Anemone layering die set because it's currently in bloom over in my zone. I have a white variety that blooms on the front part of my shaded garden. And I thought this first flower was going to be perfect for showing on this autumn-themed card. Other Craft a Flower sets or other Altenew floral sets that will work for you if you're trying to pick inspiration from an autumn-themed garden are things like hibiscus. Poppies are also great late summer bloomers. For me, my roses continue to thrive throughout this time. And one of the other products I was going to grab if it wasn't Japanese anemone was Craft a Flower Coreopsis or tick seed. That flower's doing really great in my late summer garden as well. But anyway, I went ahead and die cut a few of the images in Japanese anemone, and I'll lay these images in the order of which they'll be glued in on top of my sticky mat grid, just for easy color layering and assembly when it comes time for that. I die cut my petals from white cardstock, and then all of the foliage elements from olive cardstock, the pollen-bearing anther layers from maple yellow, and I also cut the center layers from olive cardstock. To stick with my warm red color palette that I want throughout the petals, I'll use the Blushberry Bliss family of inks, so Strawberry, Dusty Pink, Blush Rose, and Raspberry Sunset, to gently fill in the center layers of all the petal elements. I'll start with my lightest color first, and an Altenew Mini Ink blending tool, and apply this color very lightly to the center of the petal grouping, slowly building these layers to get a beautiful soft glow in the center of my petals. I blended Dusty Pink nearly to the edge of the petal tips. Then I will move down to Blush Rose and use another mini ink blending tool, and I'll apply even less of this color again to the center of the petals to deepen this area. Then after using Blush Rose, I'll move down to the next darkest color, which is Raspberry Sunset, and I'll apply an even lesser layer of this color to the center of all of my petals. For my garden, like spring, it's really a time for colors to really brighten up again as we transition into fall. So spring, everything's waking back up. And then as everything goes back to sleep for the winter in my area, the colors and variations really deepen again. And so that's why I like to really create some interesting contrast as well on my floral cards. So I'm taking this area of depth with Raspberry Sunset pretty far up on each of the petals, making sure that that color is really intense and really shines through. That'll finish my open petals for now. Like I mentioned earlier, I cut the green cardstock elements from Tropical Forest olive cardstock. And so I'll just move down the line of values of inks in Tropical Forest color family and use moss to deepen and intensify the stem layers as well as these small foliage elements. I may need additional layers as I assemble the card, but for now I just die cut a few leaves. So here is moss, and I'll use another mini ink blending tool to create some variation in the stem. I'm not sure how much of the stem will actually show up on my card front, and I'll also apply this ink to these closed buds where the base of the petal will meet the stem and apply a really intense gradient of this, just like that. I'll do the same for the leaves, starting at the center of the cluster, working that ink outward, and that will create some drama and some color interest on the leaves as well that match the petal layers on this card. I'm going to leave the flower center layers alone on this card. I don't really feel the need to apply ink to the smaller images that are in Craft a Flower Japanese Anemone, so I'll leave them alone. Now that my ink has had a little bit of time to dry, I'll use glue and assemble all of the layers to these images using the arrow, this bi-lobed little shape here, and also this other bi-lobe shape here. And essentially just start assembling all of these layers to create our gorgeous anemone flowers. Assembling these layers is so easy. All I have to do is use my favorite liquid adhesive and simply follow the layering guide found on the back of the Craft a Flower packaging. After assembling all of these images that I die cut and ink blended, I'll go ahead and set them aside and work on the other element that I want to incorporate onto this fall themed card. Again, if you don't have Japanese anemone, there are many other fall-themed sets or fall-themed blooms that you can incorporate onto your card. Another item that I will use on my autumn-themed floral scene is Craft a Flower Gladiolus. This is new for August 2025. And the more personal reason I wanted to incorporate these gladiolus blooms into my card is I had planted some gladiolus bulbs last year, right at the end of last frost in Denver. They bloomed beautifully throughout the summer. And then, according to the variety that I bought from Proven Winners, they were supposed to just completely die back. But they came back, all of them almost did. And so I was surprised when all of these beautiful long stalks started to come through again. And I kind of just let them do their thing in random areas. They didn't really fit the color palettes that I had in different areas of my garden. But yeah, that's why I felt the need to incorporate this. It still felt like a late summer bloom for me. And I just thought it would be beautiful with the Japanese anemone. I see that there are very interesting ways to fold the petals in Craft a Flower Gladiolus, and I think it'll be fun to really experiment with different colors as well, and also replicate colors that I had in my Gladiolus blooms for 2 years now. Again, on my Altenew craft mat, I'll transfer the layers of cardstock that I die cut. And since I haven't used this set yet, I'm just going to lay down the images as they are shown on the back of the Altenew Craft a Flower packaging. And this is so that I can really easily and quickly assemble these layers. Okay, so after laying down all of the flower images onto my sticky mat grid, I'll start ink blending. I try to arrange everything in the groups that they're supposed to go in. So here are my triangle and bilobe shaped images and petals down here. The small bud images here. One thing to note is I did cut 2 of each of the bud images right here. So I'll end up with 4 smaller flowers here once they're all assembled. But here's my sideways T as well as the keyhole up here. And I did my best to replicate the way that all of the images are laid out here. I suggest doing this if you've never used the Craft a Flower system before, or if it's your first time assembling the images that are found in your set. I just think it's a really nice way to stay organized and craft easily with Craft a Flower. I cut all of these layers, the petal layers, from Buttercream cardstock. And then I cut these little flower centers right here. I guess you can call these the stigma and style from white cardstock. And to paint or ink blend onto these petals, I'm going to grab a few different inks to get a nice, gorgeous blend that is so characteristic of Gladiolus. So I'll start with Lemonade Stand. This is a nice warm yellow that I think will be a great basis and foundation for the rest of the colors that I want to put on top. I'm using this color first to create my little areas of depth, the shadows found in the center of the flower. I kind of want to try out the folding system. I think it's just something new and exciting, and of course the packaging already tells you how to do so, so we'll just give that a try. But anyway, I'll just keep blending Lemonade Stand in the center of these petals, creating a foundation of depth. And I do know that some of these layers serve as placeholders for other petal layers, so that's why I'm unintentionally leaving some of these layers uncolored. In fact, just to reduce some confusion, I'm going to take out these layers because I know I won't use them on my card, and also these two. Since I'm opting for option A on both of these images, I'm just going to set these aside, maybe use them on another project. All right, so I applied a layer of Lemonade Stand with the mini ink blending tool, just like the previous flowers. And Lemonade Stand came from Citrus Punch Fresh Dye Ink Set. I want to match the tone that already exists on the petals, so I'll use Amber Blaze, and this is from Sunkissed Delights Fresh Dye Ink Set. And instead of applying this color of depth on the center of the petals, I want to use this to deepen the outer edges of these petals very slightly, just like that. What I'm thinking is wherever a petal curls away from you is where I'm applying this Amber Blaze. And you'll notice I don't really need too much of this quite yet. It's always easier to add color than it is to take it away. So that should work up pretty quickly with Amber Blaze. And I will leave the bud images uncolored with this layer as to not muddy up the colors that I want to apply next. On the Japanese anemone, I used Dusty Pink, Blush Rose, and Raspberry Sunset from Blushberry Bliss. I'll also reintroduce Raspberry Sunset on this grouping of petals, just to marry and harmonize the two flowers together in this bouquet. And instead of using a mini ink blending brush to apply this layer of ink, I'll use one of the detail blending brushes. This is the number 5 size, and I will paint this color on to the very edges of the petals and create directional strokes with this ink. As you're applying ink on your card, you want to make sure that you're not trying to cover all of the areas on the edges of the petals. You'll really want some of that Lemonade Stand and Amber Blaze to really peep through. With the smaller bud images, I'm just using a mini ink blending tool just to catch the very edge of these closed buds, making sure that that cardstock, that buttercream cardstock shows through still on the bottom, as well as the Lemonade Stand ink blend that we applied. To color in the pistil layers, these ones right here, that I cut from white cardstock, I'm going to bring back that Tropical Forest family of inks. I'll use Parrot and a mini ink blending tool, just as we've been doing, to create a green base right at the edge here. And once these inked images dry back, we should be able to start assembling these layers. I'll start with what I perceive to be the most simple grouping of images, which is the triangle and fused circle images down here. So I'm starting with layer number 1 and aligning these images based on the keyhole alignment system. And again, since everything is already in order on my sticky mat grid, I just have to grab them and overlay the images on top of each other. And this really eliminates the confusion as I put all of these images on top. I did notice on step 2, I'm supposed to bring this tip forward right here. So let me do that before I accidentally glue it down. And there we go. That's so cute. Love that. Okay, set that over to the side here so I don't get confused. I'll work on assembling the sideways tee. Again, everything is already in order for me, so I just have to grab and stack the layers. So that's one more flower. Then I'll start assembling the keyhole image. Layers 1 through 5 are nothing out of the ordinary. So there we go. It looks like those are all the open petals again. Assembling the budded images is so simple. You actually start with the base layer of the leaf, and you hide the whole alignment system underneath another image of the leaf, just like that. So here are the two budded images layered and grouped. I do have these extra ones down here without the stem. So I'll quickly assemble these, and I know I will use these in other areas of the card to make this Gladiolus bloom appear more full. I also have the stems cut from olive cardstock, just as the Japanese anemone. So since everything is nearly assembled, I'll apply a light layer of moss, again from the same green family of ink that we've been using throughout this project, and that'll finish the ink blending on Craft a Flower Gladiolus. I'll do a little bit of cleaning up on my sticky mat grid and let the glue fully dry on all of my die cut images, including the Japanese anemone, just so that everything is sturdy and ready to go when it comes to assembling this card. While all of those layers are drying back, I'll bring in my BetterPress system. I know that there's going to be a lot happening on my card front already with all of the floral images, so I'm going to keep the background pretty simple and just use a BetterPress plate to get some interesting texture. So I have a panel of milk chocolate, and I'll pick up the cardstock with some Altenew tape runner onto the platen. And to me, nothing says autumn like burlap, so I've got the Rustic Burlap Essential Textures press plate. I've grabbed this press plate time and time again. I just think it's such a great image to add onto your card. I'll ink up this plate with milk chocolate. I'll return the platen on top and run this through my die cutting machine. And then what I end up with is this gorgeous slight texture on my card front, and just an easy way to fill up the background on this card. One last step before I take this cardstock panel off of my platen is I've just distressed the bottom edges of this panel very roughly, just to create a little bit more variation on this panel. Now I can begin assembling this card now that I have the background. I'm starting with that burlap texture background. I quickly drafted this arrangement on my card and nothing is glued down yet on my panel. I went ahead and stamped my sentiment for this card, Friendship Blossoms in Every Season. I feel like this was fitting for autumn and for fall. And this sentiment comes from Build a Garden Rose Reverie. After playing around with many different variations of this arrangement, I really like the still upward growth of this with the Gladiolus, but also the sort of cascading shape that we're getting with the Japanese anemone. Before I add the sentiment to this card, I'm going to add a variety of splatter to the background. Instead of the pure white ink spray that I like to stick to, I'm actually going to grab iridescent ink spray and add splatter for that dreamy sort of shiny halo throughout this bouquet. Then after adding my sentiment, I'll add the coordinating sequins, clear iridescent Altenew Stellar sequins, to really fill in the empty space on my background. I used my Altenew Perfect Picker, as well as the Crafter's Essential Tweezers, to make sure I get perfect placement of all of my sequins onto my background. So remember, as the Burr months wrap up in their cozy embrace, I hope this autumn-inspired card sparks your own creative journey. Remember, each season brings new possibilities, beautiful color palettes, perfect floral pairings, and gorgeous texture. Make sure to use these ideas on your next Altenew Fall Floral card.